Hello, it's 1 o'clock. My name is John Winterbottom, Democracy Services Team Leader here at QLDC. Please note that the session today is being recorded and will be posted to the website after. Welcome to the hearing of submissions and deliberations on Waste Management and Minimisation Plan 2025. The panel today consists of Councillors Cody Tucker, Esther Whitehead and Gavin Bartlett. The first order of business today is the election of a chair. I thereby invite the panel to nominate and elect the chair. Do we have a nomination and a mover and a seconder?
I'll nominate Councillor Cody Tucker, please.
I'll second it. The vote?
All in favour.
Oh, excellent. Okay, well, I then pass it over to Chair Tucker.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Kia ora tātou, welcome. First, we have a few housekeeping matters to attend to. We have apologies or leaves of requests from the board.
Or do we count Lisa Guy as an apology?
I've just spoken previously because we've chosen 4 and then chosen 3 who suit them. It's appropriate to carry on as we are.
No problem.
Any declarations of conflict of interest on any of the panel?
No.
No.
Great. Confirmation agenda. I'm happy to move that the agenda be confirmed without addition or alteration. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Esther. All those in favour?
Yep.
Aye. Fully carried. Right, I move quickly to the reporting officer's summary. I'll invite officers to speak to the hearing panel report. Sophie.
Kia ora, thank you very much. Thank you, councillors. So back in May, council endorsed the statement of proposal and the draft WMP of 2025 for public consultation. And as a result of that, we received a total of 67 submissions during the course of the special consultative procedure. The report in front of you provides an analysis of the submissions received, and the submission pack contains all the feedback received through the process. This hearing now provides for members of the public to speak to their submissions, and the hearings panel is asked to receive the written and oral submissions during the deliberations recommend a final form of our draft WMP. In general, the submissions were very supportive of the proposed WMP's overall direction, its vision, the guiding principles, the 5 objectives and the associated key actions. In addition, the submissions spoke very strongly in support of Wastebusters and the broad outcomes that they are delivering on behalf of the community. They also spoke of taking greater action at design stage of construction activity within our district, of working more closely with our visitor sector and moving faster in terms of implementing some of the actions. As a result of the hearings today and the reading of the submissions, if the panel propose any amendments, we will work very quickly to amend the document and present a final WMP to council for consideration and adoption. And we've got a slot tentatively scheduled for the 4th of September council meeting. I have no further comments. If you have any questions.
Any questions from panel members before we get into discussion? Well,
Not at this stage, but maybe later.
Yeah.
I don't have any at this stage either.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Happy to move on to our hearings. First up, we have Gina from Wanaka Wastebusters. I'll invite you to the table. It's 10 minutes for your speech, your submission, whatever it is. And if you want to answer questions from the panelists, it'll be within that time. I'll sort of give you a little wave 30 seconds before the end if it gets close to it. But start when you are.
Great. Well, Tēnā koutou, ko Gina Dexter Aho. I'm the manager of Wastebusters, and I'm going to talk very fast because I've got much to say. Firstly, thanks so much for the opportunity to give feedback on behalf of Wastebusters today. And I really want to recognise the collaborative approach taken by Council in preparing the WMP. And I think that's laid the groundwork for a really great WMP at the end of this process. We are supportive of the draft WMP, and we are recommending some changes to the draft as outlined in our written submission. Today, I'm going to try and keep it at a reasonably high level, just to focus on the top priorities for Wastebusters in terms of our recommendations, and those are including social enterprise in the stakeholder definition, recognising Wastebusters as a strategic partner and including an action to co-create a partnership framework and MOU, and including an action to provide Wastebusters with a lease for additional land. And I'm also happy to answer any questions about any other specific actions from our written submission. So you probably know Wastebusters, hopefully have visited us at least once, but quick summary, we're a social enterprise. Ambition is to lead the way to a zero waste circular economy. We were set up by the community, we're owned by the community. We have charitable status. We've been delivering resource recovery services, education and behaviour change for 25 years. We have 55 employees and we're a living wage employer. And in 2025-26 year, we're budgeting to spend $4 million and providing resource recovery services and education and behaviour change across the district. So I just want to talk a little bit about the role of social enterprise in working towards zero waste. And you know, people sometimes say to us, well, what makes you a social enterprise? And I really like this definition. It's quite simple. It's the heart of a charity with the mind of a business. So it's really about using the business model to deliver work with purpose. And last year, our business mind won a real accolade from the Ignite Chamber of Commerce when we won the Supreme Business Award. And yeah, it's going to boast a little bit. We also won the Community and Sustainability Awards at the same time. But it's using that business mindset and skill set to solve waste problems has really underpinned Wastebusters' ability to deliver large scale and long-term impact. Annually, we're diverting 1,400 tonnes through reuse, repair and recycling, and nearly 15,000 people attended our education classes and events last year, and I'd like to recognise Council's support for Wastebusters' design and delivery of the Resourceful Communities program. And I've been at Wastebusters a long time now, and I remember back in about 2011, we had a visit from Auckland Council to see what Wastebusters was doing and how we worked, and now they have 14 zero waste hubs in Auckland, and their plan is to have 24 by 2031. So, you know, social enterprise has been proven both in our district and across Aotearoa to be a highly effective stakeholder in delivering waste diversion and community behaviour change. And it's really important to recognise that gap that social enterprise fills between business and not-for-profit, and that ability to deliver impact at scale. And that's why our first recommendation is that social enterprise is added as a separate category to the list of stakeholders in the WMP. So as I said earlier, we're supporting of the 5 broad objectives of the draft WMP, and we also really support Council's commitment to a collaborative approach in working in partnership. The draft target is a diversion of an additional 80,000 tonnes of from landfill over 6 years, including 52,000 tonnes of construction waste. And you know, somebody that works with waste every day, I know these are very big and aspirational targets, especially of the construction waste objective. We agree strongly with Council's assessment that Council cannot make significant progress without the community and stakeholder groups also taking action. And to divert 52,000 tonnes, we're really going to need large-scale, practical resource recovery solutions, reuse and recycling for construction and demolition waste in our district. If it was easy or profitable to provide this, it would already be happening. Wastebusters does already take a very limited amount of construction and demolition waste for reuse, but to get to scale as a district, all of us, all of the stakeholders will need to be innovative and decisive and to find investment to create the infrastructure we need. I think it's fair to say that Council's WMP actions do not include providing or investing directly in resource recovery for C&D. So it's really going to be up to other stakeholders to do some heavy lifting in this space. Luckily, we do have an ACE card in our hand as a district. Our council doesn't need to go out and spend lots of money and energy setting up and supporting social enterprise-driven resource recovery solutions as other councils are doing now. Wastebusters already exists. We've got 25 years of expertise in delivery, and this is a model that other councils are looking to and copying. And to leverage this advantage for our district, I think it really is time now for a strategic partnership between council and Wastebusters as part of this WMP. And I really want to recognise the development and the relationship between council and Wastebusters over the last 5 years especially. A strategic partnership would drive waste reduction and resource recovery outcomes in our district, resulting in delivery on our targets, especially the construction and demolition diversion target, innovative solutions, community perception of more progress and action, a blueprint for other future partnerships with council and other stakeholders, and accelerated transition towards zero waste and a circular economy for our district. What am I doing for time? So that's why our second recommendation is to recognise Wastebusters as Council's strategic zero waste and circular economy partner, and an attached recommendation number 3 is to include an action to co-create a strategic partnership framework and MOU with Wastebusters. Now I'm going to talk about land, and I have been talking about Wastebusters need more land since I became GM in November 2023, and that was literally 2 days before the land at 189 Valentine Road went up for sale, which was a bit of a dropped in the deep end situation. And in that time, the space situation for Wastebusters has become more critical, and I'm raising it here again because it is a prerequisite for Wastebusters making a significant contribution to the WMP objectives and targets. I think you all know we're operating from the same site as in 2000. That's when the population was about 4,500 people, now nearly quadruple that. And it's resulting in more stuff unnecessarily going to landfill. We've got health and safety risks to our community and staff that we need to manage. And there's a cap on our financial revenue, which is threatening to our future sustainability. And we can't obviously add new materials at the moment in terms of diversion. And it does raise the risk of losing Wastebusters, or at least some of our services from the community in the future. Currently, we're located on about 9,000 square metres, including informal parking. And we have identified that we require 20,750 square metres to future-proof us and increase our diversion. We have been working with council to find a solution, and it feels like we're making really good progress. And honestly, that is a relief because our deadline is October this year to have an in-principle agreement with council to access the required land. And alongside these negotiations, we're working on securing significant external funding to build Wastebusters 2.0, a purpose-built circular economy action and education hub, which would expand our current construction and demolition resource recovery into a full hub, provide more reuse shopping yard space and on-site education and repair, and ensure safety for cars and pedestrians. Working with Tonkin and Taylor, we have estimated the contribution that Wastebusters 2.0 could make towards the WMP targets, and based on a pro rata population for Wanaka, we've estimated the 6-year C&D target for the Wanaka side of the hill is 16,000 tonnes, and that through Wastebusters 2.0 we could deliver 11,000 tonnes, which is about 70% of that Wanaka target over 6 years, is a significant contribution. So we have data for other material streams too, which I can provide if it's useful, but we can't provide this construction and demolition hub without the additional land. So our fourth recommendation is that council includes an action to provide Wastebusters with additional land on a peppercorn lease required to enable Wastebusters to address priority waste streams in the WMP and future-proof us for the next 10 years. So to wrap up, the key points for us are include social enterprise in the stakeholder definition, recognise Wastebusters as a strategic partner, work on that MOU and stakeholder framework, and provide us with a lease for the additional land. Which leaves you with 1 minute for any questions.
That's exactly right. Well done. Does the panel have any questions?
I don't know that I do have many questions, but just thank you for outlining that very comprehensively everything that you've done for 25 years and more, and we appreciate it. And I guess my only question would be around social enterprise, the entity component. Can you just speak to why that is so important to you?
I guess it's because it's about providing, if you look at the definition of a social enterprise, you trade goods and services, but you're driven by purpose.
Yeah.
And that's that unique space that sits between not-for-profit, which is funded generally through grants, and business that is driven by profit. And I think that is when we look at the waste solutions we're trying to solve, they're often usually in the area of market failure.
Yeah.
Because honestly, if there was a commercial viable solution, business will be doing it. Yeah. Not-for-profit do really valuable work, but they're grant-based and they don't have that scale. And so really, I think that when we're talking about waste, social enterprise is really a stakeholder, think of its own.
Awesome. Is it going to be quick on time? That'd be a better question.
Got another minute.
Go for it.
Sorry. The area that you mentioned, so you mentioned 20,750 square metres. Does that include an allowance for construction and demolition waste?
Yeah.
And the 33 or 32,000 that's in the submission, that's to future-proof it for?
That's to future-proof to 2055. So the smaller totals to 2035, 10 years. and the large total is to add that extra time.
And, I have been to Wanaka Wastebusters and it's pretty impressed by what's going on there. And I can see that you are restraining the space. There's also been a lot of support in the submissions that we've had for the work that you're doing and for being able to expand it as well. Actually, one more question was, would the construction and demolition part of it need to be incorporated with all the other parts, or could it be a separate little parcel of land nearby?
Yeah, I think it doesn't have to be completely within that same footprint, I would say, because you are really dealing with a different audience. However, in terms of operational efficiencies, it would need to be close. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Right,
Really
thank
appreciate
you.
it. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Tim.
I'm happy to now invite Shana Payne and Catherine Leslie of Central Otago Sustainability and NZIA. Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
So you have 10 minutes.
Thank you.
And same rule, you've been around to hear the rules, so you go for it when you're ready.
Good afternoon and thanks for allowing the Better Building Wanaka Group to speak today. I've been a member of the group for 2 years. Aaron wasn't able to be here, so I will introduce the group for him. My name is Katrina Gallatley. I'm a local sustainability consultant consulting to Green Construction, who build commercial, civil and residential across the lower half of the South Island. And like I said, I've been part of the Better Building Wanaka Group for 2 years. They're a local multidisciplinary group composed of over 40 members from building industries such as architecture, building suppliers, waste management services, local councils and others. And one of the key focuses of the group is construction and demolition waste, which has led to a subgroup to be formed. The subgroup came together to create the response to the draft WMMP and garnered additional support from members of the wider Better Building Group. We commend the QLDC for the goals and aspirations outlined in the draft WMMP and support its overall direction. We particularly appreciate QLDC's goal to look at collaboration. The Better Building Wanaka Group does currently receive support and funding from QLDC through agreements with WOW, who facilitates this group. We're grateful for the support and hope that since Council already backs this group to provide solutions to reducing C&D waste, the Council will put additional weight behind our input. Furthermore, while we appreciate the importance of collaboration to work towards achieving these goals to be shared amongst all in the community, we want to make sure the Council won't pass off all duties and responsibilities. Within the draft WMMP, Council's typical role in construction waste section tends to show collaborate and facilitate, drive behaviour change and fund local initiatives. While we fully support this role for Council, we'd also like to see a more active role in some instances. While often not easy to define what a more active role might be, we simply want to make sure that Council won't pass along all responsibilities to industry where Council could possibly make help in a more active way. We'll get to some more concrete examples that can be shown from our submission. Before that, I'd like to give a quick succinct overview of the BBWG submission. While our submission tackled many topics, there are 3 main focal points that we found missing and we firmly believe Council should adopt into the new WMMP. Number 1, designing out waste. We felt the higher levels of waste hierarchy, the more important levels were missing when it came to the construction section of the draft. This is referring particularly to rethink and reduce levels. We need to figure out ways to tackle waste before it's even created, not just focus on the ambulance at the bottom of the hill, which is what the draft seemed to focus on when it came to C&D waste. We understand it's not easy, but there are too many facts and real life experiences showing immense potential that designing out waste has to simply ignore it. There should be at least some language in the WMMP around this. Number 2, C&D waste hubs and infrastructure. We won't talk much to this today, as we've just heard from Gina from Wastebusters. But thank you, Gina and Waste Busters, for your efforts in order to properly tackle reuse, which should again be given higher priority than lower level waste management practices. We need proper infrastructure. The BBWG strongly advocates for the establishment of the C&D resource recovery hubs in both Wanaka and Queenstown, and we fully support Waste Busters' proposal to expand its site to achieve this in Wanaka. Number 3, mandatory site waste minimisation plans. This is something our group strongly believes we needed in place yesterday. The list of supporters for our submission includes some prominent industry names, which we believe should be sufficient enough proof to show that this is something industry actually wants, not something they fear. Green, who I consult to, are also a company that would proudly throw their support behind this. I'll talk more about this in a bit, but first I'll pass the floor over to Shana from NZIA.
Hello, thank you for your time today. I'm Shanna, the Southern Branch Chair of the NZIA. I'm here to talk about the designing out waste of the C&D and the waste management plan as a bigger picture, as a problem that architects are already, it's a buzzword at the moment with circular economy. The linear economy that we currently have in our local council delivers C&D waste of 242 tons per week to landfill. That is using the take, make, and dispose model, and we need to quickly turn this to a circular model. This allows architects to design for disassembly. If we design for disassembly, we reduce that waste greatly, but where does it go? How do we get it back to the market and reused? And that's the rethink that we are here to support today. And we strongly encourage, with the priority, the number 2 goal is to that action of monitoring, collecting the data is where is the waste coming from, and we can reduce it within design, but also where is it going? How can we stop the linear model of going to disposal? So we, as part of the submission and from an architect's point of view, we can make that change, and we want to either work with the council or heavily lean with the NZIA and work with us and partner with us to educate and have that behavior change from our point of view. We're here to help. But also led by contractors who are at the end, they're at the bottom of the cliff, and their design industry. You have partnerships with Naylor Love and Cook Brothers, who already are out there on the ground collecting the data by being in the waste dumps and working with All Waste to figure out where this waste is going and where is it coming from. It's generally jib, plasterboard, timber that's brand new, and plastic. And this stuff can be stopped by just educating back to the suppliers and back to the designers who are putting this stuff in. We can make change, but we also need that feedback loop and that support. So thank you for offering the funding to have those ideas, especially with the contractors that have taken the leap of faith to try these systems. But beyond that, we can't take them over the hill to Wanaka Waste Busters. Here in Queenstown, we have a massive issue of it going to the landfill because it's the quickest and cheapest option. We can't transport that waste because that's also a bigger cost to the clients. They don't want to do it. So we support the Wanaka Waste Busters C&D hub, but we also need this in Queenstown or regionally, like over in Cromwell. Where do they go? They're not going to also ship it. And the waste management plans, we've got great other councils to lean on that are already doing it, like Dunedin, Wellington, and Tauranga. They're forming leaderships, or they are leaders in the circular economy. So let's lean on them and their plans to help you. Thank you.
Yeah.
You got 2 minutes. Go for it.
Oh, great. Okay, so I want to talk about the point to make waste minimisation plans a regulatory requirement for the construction industry. And I'll speak to my experience with Bren Construction, who I've been working with for the last 4 years. they work across the lower South Island, and a reasonably big company of over 200 staff. They made a commitment to reduce their operational emissions by 42% by 2030, which is in line with science-based targets. And since 2020, have measured their carbon inventory yearly. Waste is their second highest source of carbon emissions. They've put a huge amount of time and resource in setting up waste management practices to decrease the amount of construction waste going to landfill. And they've communicated these changes across the company by creating videos for on-site staff education. They've created company branded recycling signage to hang on all of their bins, so everything is very clear on site, focused on analysing waste data from waste contractors to help track progress or not towards their reduction goals. The data over the last 3 years has shown very little progress in reducing waste, even though the commitment by the board and management is very strong. This is being diluted by the time it reaches the construction site. And our experience suggests that behaviour change won't happen en masse because it's the right thing to do. And Breen have over the last few years tested this and made very little progress. The environmentally minded foremen are on board and are achieving high recycling on site, but many and the majority are failing in meeting the expectations set by the company. And this is a company that have dozens of projects running at a time. And so we're talking about changing the habits of dozens of staff. Council know that current construction waste practices are increasing waste to landfill and have the data that shows that. And we know it takes time for companies to implement new policy changes. We strongly recommend that you make change impactful now and implement mandatory site waste minimisation plans in the next WMNP.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, both for coming to speak, for your comprehensive submission and for leadership that you have in the communities. We're out of time for questions.
Yeah, just a shame because I had a few, but it's all right.
Can we not make the time or not?
Yeah, do we have Minnie Kelly around?
I'm not sure, I've not heard from her, so I just.
Well, I was on.
Wow.
Online.
Oh, okay.
No, Monique is not making it.
Yes, we have time for questions.
Is somebody else making it?
Um,
or not?
Yeah, somebody else.
She's is anyone speaking on Monique's behalf, you know?
No, I don't believe anyone's coming from WOW.
Okay, good to check. We have time for questions. Then you've got so many things.
Just one or two, but yeah, do you have, I know designing out waste in the design stage is talked about. The council probably doesn't have direct input into that stage of it, but apart from maybe an educational potential for the industry, and the industry sounds like it's sort of leading some of that anyway, but do you have any direct examples or easy examples of where waste has been designed out?
Yeah, it would be through that feedback loop of the contractors, and mostly it comes from the universities, so studies. There was one that was done in Jack's Point that I can happily email and share, but it's watching the industry, getting that feedback from the contractors, and it'll be like smaller, simpler shapes.
Yeah.
Not less complex. You know, there's probably a one pager that could be designed and shared with the community as homeowners to choose to build. It's setting out materials that actually are specific to that material sizing. So you're dealing with less offcuts.
Yep.
The manufacturers, when you do prefab or off-site manufacturing, they'll actually take their waste and reduce it on site rather than it being framed on site and you're dealing with those offcuts. And then integrating, we can sit here all day, but the biggest one is when it comes down to that deconstruction. And that's what my biggest fear as architects, if we do try and push for the circular economy, if we're designing for deconstruction and using screws instead of glue and all this kind of stuff, then where is it going to go? Because there's no facility for it to go to, for somebody to say, this is a brand new material that hasn't even been touched, because tiles get over-spec'd for breakage. But then where does those extra 3 boxes of tiles go? Put into the waste because there's no place to put it. People aren't typically driving over to Wanaka Waste to put it there.
Can I say something real quick to that?
Yep.
I'm in touch with the nationwide TA C&D waste meeting every quarter, and I do have an example from Jeff Gibbs from up in Hawke's Bay where their council purchased a stadium to be demolished, and within the contracts tendering process, they made sure there were waste minimization aspects to that. So they were able to minimize, I think, over 70% of that project's waste from the start. And that's something directly councils can have involvement in. I'll just leave it with that. Thank you.
I've just got one quick question. It might need a short answer. I don't know if you do a short answer, but obviously your learnings through Greens, some of it might look like best practice, some of it might not, but it's the learning that's important. Can you or have you directly shared those learnings with council at all as yet?
No,
Okay.
no, only with the Better Building Wanaka group. which
Yeah.
is- Yeah.
I think that would be a great opportunity if it's possible, just because.
Yeah.
It could offer those insights kind of immediately, you know.
Yeah, well, we do have a couple of members from councils in the group, so yes.
Okay.
Indirectly that way. Thanks.
Very good.
Same with other contractors like nailers and cooks.
Yeah.
Like, I do believe reaching out to them to ask for that feedback and to say, how could you, what would you tell designers to do less of? Because what do you see most going to the waste that could be, could change? And feeding that back, because we'd love to know that, but it's not shared. So that behavior change isn't gonna happen without that feedback.
Thanks.
Is that Aaron I heard online?
Yeah.
Did you have anything to say, mate? We've got 3 minutes in your class.
Yeah, sorry. Just came down quite sick. I was planning on making it. Sorry, I couldn't be there in person and not sharing my screen at the moment. Don't look too good. I just want to mention that, yeah, we really appreciate what you guys have done with this. C&D is obviously the biggest issue here. I think talking to that last point, we do have a member, Bridget White, who works for Warren Mahoney. She's constantly saying that we need to improve the feedback loop, whether that's within industry players or from council to industry. We have council who sits on this group and gets to see all of our presentations. And so, you know, we are happily able to communicate this, and we do constantly do this through our meetings. The next step is just seeing the outcomes, right? And so how do we get the outcomes? For example, we had Christy Jones from Cook Brothers do an amazing presentation. She did a massive waste audit on, I think it's the mill over by the airport in Queenstown. And she basically dumped out every skip that came to site and found some amazing data. And that's where that piece of data comes, that they showed 80% of their waste could have been diverted from the design stage. So we need that data, and I'm happy for anything that comes through the BBWG to share with council. But yeah, the next step is, hey, how do we use that data to what we want to achieve?
Cool. I think it's time. One thing I was going to say was the Waste Minimisation Community Fund a couple of years ago helped support a resource recovery park in Queenstown with partnering with Nail Love, and yeah, totally understand the sentiment, and we're here keen to partner with those people, and like I say, appreciate the leadership in the space, because it sort of requires a holistic approach.
And that's the biggest thing out of this is, where's the space in Queenstown for contractors to allow that to happen? If that's a long-term thing and the community are gaining out of it, but how can we get it back into the design aspect as well? So also with council, there's limitations of building products that are actually being reused. When you're going through a consenting product process and you're putting in a remove old flooring, how does that get across into our building consents? It doesn't, you know, like looking at those reusable materials, that section of the building consent process, how can we reintroduce or look at the circular economy for actually accepting materials that are reused?
definitely. Thank you both very much for your time.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Awesome. I believe we have Sophie from Plastic Free Wanaka online. Welcome, Sophie. Thanks for coming in and speaking to your submission. You have 10 minutes, and if you'd like questions from the panel, you can just leave some time in the end for us to do so. So when you're ready.
All right, thanks, Cody. Thanks, everyone. Sorry I can't be there in person. My name's Sophie Ward. I'm here as a director of Plastic Free Wanaka. We are a social enterprise and a charitable business. We exist to shift our community away from single-use packaging towards more reusable options. We use a focused, targeted approach. We engage, educate, and inspire to make behaviour change easier for our community. It's really awesome to be here today. Thank you so much for the opportunity. We really appreciate the effort and all the work that's gone into developing the Waste Minimisation and Management Plan. And we are in full support of the overarching direction, the goals, and the actions proposed. We would like to reiterate our really strong support for the focus on collaboration and partnerships. I think given the challenges that we all face, it's never been more important to work together towards these goals. We are immensely grateful to the QLDC Zero Waste District program for ongoing financial and in-kind support for our work to reduce single-use cups in our district. We certainly wouldn't be able to achieve our goals and results without this support. In total, over 6 years, we've received around $50,000 of support. Just to put it into context, it's about the same as you'd put down to get yourself a RAV hybrid. So yeah, not a huge amount of money, but we have really turned that into action. So in this time, working together with the hospitality and tourism sector and our community, we have created social norms to say no to throwaway cups in Wanaka, to take your own, to borrow when you forget, or to sit down if you've got the time and enjoy your coffee. There are 10 local cafes who are entirely single-use cup-free in Wanaka, and another 19 offer lending schemes for people who've forgotten their cups. Each year, we estimate these actions are saving around 850,000 throwaway cups from landfill. It's around 17 tonnes of waste every year. The work that we've done has inspired and supported other single-use cup-free initiatives around Aotearoa, including Suck-Free Whakatipu, led by the amazing Sustainable Queenstown, Anamata Aotea on Great Barrier Island, Nelson, Mercury Bay, and a bunch of other groups. Saying no to throwaway cups has just become, just what we do here, certainly in Wanaka, and it is becoming more so in Queenstown also. People are often saying to me, when I leave town, I'm just so surprised. I forgot that the bubble that we're living in down here. And I go and it's hard to use one, and there's just single-use cups everywhere, and it's not on people's radar. But despite these amazing results that we're achieving, we are still sending 800,000 cups to landfill from Wanaka every year. If we add in Queenstown, it's around 2.5 million for the district, which, is a lot. If you lay them end to end, they would line the road from Haas to Glenorchy. So we do still have a lot of work to be done. And cups are just the first step in a transition to a reuse future for packaging. We have plans to expand our work to take away food containers, smoothie cups, and more. But there's a lot of barriers, and we're really, often quite up against it. There's not a lot of support from central government in terms of policy and legislation change. There's quite a big cost on business and cost on cafes to train their staff, to educate customers, and also the challenge of getting our visitor community on board is, it's quite a big one. And we also just don't have the washing infrastructure and the logistical support to implement reuse at scale in our district, particularly for events. And this is, not to mention, there's a really real risk for our cafes of losing customers if they're only offering a reusable option. And we know that that is true. A lot of the leaders in our cafe community who have, taken this leadership role have said to us anecdotally that they do lose some customers from taking that leadership stance because there is another option. There are 2 recommended changes that we would love to see in the updated WMP. And the first one is a bit more of an explicit commitment to reusable packaging systems. Offering scalable reuse systems for packaging is going to be really critical for a transition to a circular economy and zero waste. We would like to see more investment in washing infrastructure and reuse logistics, and we would really love to see it explicitly stated that our future waste infrastructure is going to be future-proof for a reuse economy. And we know that this will, we're not blind. We know that this will take time and it will also take investment. But it's really critical that we start the transition now so that we're ready for when that comes. And we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We can look to Europe, we can look to North America, we can look to Australia for examples of reusable packaging systems that are operating at scale. They're saving money for businesses, saving money for governments, and creating massive savings in waste to landfill. But also underpinning this, we need to continue to fund behaviour change campaigns like ours so that we can support our communities in the transition to a future where reusable packaging is the norm, not just for cups, but for everything that we do in our daily lives. And then the second recommendation is that we would love to see the council using any policy or legislative lever that they have to accelerate our district towards a single-use cup-free future. As a first step, we would love to see council banning the use of single-use cups and containers at all of their venues. I think that would be, like a really great leadership role for the council to take. And that is really all I had to say. And just to say thank you so much for the opportunity to be involved. We're really looking forward to working together towards a reusable future. And also, please, please, please give Wastebusters more land so they can build a bigger, better circular economy hub and environment hub for our community.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Sophie. Appreciate it. Do we have any questions from the panel? Sophie, we have about 3 minutes left.
I don't think I do have any questions, so sorry.
I have one if that helps. How do you get into franchises with single-use cups? When we're thinking about it recently, we're thinking about McDonald's and a lot of the Burger Kings and that kind of stuff. Have you had any insight into how to disrupt there?
Yeah, I don't think I've got any particular success story for you there, Cody, but yeah, I guess what we're starting to see broadly across waste is that a lot of the changes are coming at a more national level, so they're actually coming from corporate. So I suppose for us, we're not seeing that kind of filtering down into cups, but we're certainly seeing that in other areas of waste. But yeah, I think having those local models that act as an example to see that, it can be done locally if you have the support from your community.
Yeah, no, I think we can play a role in advocacy and in that respect, so that it's bottom up and top down in the same respect. No other questions?
Only, could you say again how many cups we've been used and how far we are?
In the district, we estimate, and I'd say this is a conservative estimate, that there are around 2.5 million cups are going to a landfill every year, and they are, because they're a fibre-based piece of packaging, they're going to be creating methane because they are an organic material. So it's not good for climate change or waste.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for your time. Thank you for submitting.
Thank you, Sophie.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.
Appreciate it. Cheers.
Bye.
Awesome. Happy to move to Arthur Lee from Queenstown Lakes Community Housing Trust. These are all around. Oh, yeah.
Hello, can everyone see and hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Hi, Arthur.
Awesome,
yeah,
thank you very much.
no worries. You have 10 minutes to make your submission, and any extra time we'll use for questions. But go for it.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. So my name is Arthur Lee. I am the Sustainability and Development Officer at the Queenstown Lakes Community Housing Trust, and I helped the trust draft our submission to the new proposed WMMP. So first and foremost, we just want to voice our support and acknowledgement for QLDC's waste minimization actions and effort in the past few years, and us being at the forefront of the building industry, many outcomes have been noticeable. So that's very positive. And the new proposed WMMP expands on that foundation. And there are clearly many improvements, but there are also missed opportunities, especially around the rethink and reduce level of the waste minimization hierarchy. And in the context of buildings, rethink and reduce are often referred to as design out waste as well. And in the proposed WMMP, QLDC identifies rethink and reduce can generate the most impact, but currently very few actions directly associated with it. So this is where our submission focuses on. And I won't repeat our submission, but I do want to share one story about how rethink, reduce, and design our waste has been implemented in real world, how easy they can be, and how much impact they can generate. So about last month, I compared 2 3-bed, 1.5 bathroom houses. And one of that we have recently just built, and the other we are about to build later this year. Both houses are designed for the same purpose and house the same family type and the number of people. And one key factor I track is the surface area of the building envelope they use. The former one uses 368 square meter, and the later uses 314 square meter. In other words, the house we have recently built requires 368 square meter of building fabric just to enclose the functional space. And the next project will require only 314. And as we know, every square meter is a lot of building material and money. In this case, we save 15% of the area and building material before construction even begins by just designing a bit smarter, simpler, and smaller. It is truly a win-win-win situation. And not to mention, a simpler design is also easier, faster, and cheaper for any builder to minimize and manage waste on site. So in this case, we didn't spend hours, reduce 2% on off-cut. We didn't spend days to repurpose another 1% or recycle 3%. We thought about it hard and smart, and 15% achievement is there compared to our last project. So this is the power of design and planning. This is the power of rethink and reduce. It is easier, it is cheaper, and it is more impactful at the same time compared to trying to tackle the lower end of waste minimization hierarchy. So in fact, the additional cost on design and planning is zero in this case, which is very hard to say no to. In practice, we fully understand it is easy to get too technical, but what this story told us is we must resist the temptation to jump into details too soon. Yes, rethink and reduce is very hard to put into KPI or quantified. However, it is if the kind of waste minimization success story I've just shared is what we want to hear more, giving the highest priority and focusing our energy and effort on rethink and reduce in our decision making in the way we collaborate and communicate is how we will get there. So if QLDC still have room and still interested in how the WMMP can be shaped to capture more of that potential from rethink, reduce, and designing our waste, we are always here to support each other and generate greater outcome for our community as we always do. Thank you. That's all from me.
Thank you. Thank you, Arthur, and thank you for the submission as well. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, just quickly, Arthur, so thanks for that, but with that example you gave us, that was using the comparison of the wall area, wasn't it a thing?
Correct. No, floor plus wall plus roof. So it's the whole envelope. Yeah.
So just out of those two examples, though, what was the comparison just for the floor areas themselves? Were they similar floor areas or were they slightly different?
The house is slightly smaller, but that's again by designing smarter and simpler at the same time. So we minimize waste space, we minimize unnecessary space and room and circulation, all of that. So again, by implementing smarter, simpler, and smaller design, that's an easy win just by a little bit of better rethink and reduce.
Yeah. Thank you.
I've got a similar question. Given that you obviously work with the Housing Trust, you've got an amazing opportunity to influence larger scale than, 1 or 2 houses.
Yeah.
Are you able to, or has there been situations where you've been able to influence other companies out there, such as other construction companies, by just educating them on, I guess, what you just talked to us about, the envelope kind of scenario?
We
In
are
terms of-
obviously.
I guess,
Right.
sorry, in terms of, you know, the incentive to them is they can maximise profit, if nothing else, that they can address it through maximising their profit through less waste.
Yeah, this is a very hard and very political question, I suppose, because I suppose most construction companies, they are incentivized to build bigger and more complex so they can make more money. But from our perspective, we do believe what we are doing is for the interests of community and the consumers. And obviously, we are in the position to share our lesson and learning with everyone for wider adoption. And we believe it's the right direction to go, as many other submitters already mentioned earlier. That connection and that strengthening of the relationship and the thought process with the people who involved in the design and planning is critically important. So we definitely want to play part of it.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll finish with one. Arthur, do you have any simple tools that you use for energy modeling or for helping design passive house principle stuff that could be something worth championing at council level?
I will be more than happy to make myself available to expand and advance in this area if the council feel I can add value to the process. Again, I will be more than keen to be part of it. Yes, and I do have very good understanding on multiple energy modeling software to help anyone to reduce the energy use, save energy, and improve future resilience. That they have pros and cons, so I'm more than happy to take this offline. But I do think I have the answer and ability to add value to it.
Awesome. Like you say, I think it's a conversation for another day. But thank you very much for speaking today and for your work in the Housing Trust.
No worries. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Bye. Okay, we are running ahead of time. But we need to have Daniel Naguera from Zero Waste Glenorchy if you'd like to come up. We will use every bit of time we've got. So lucky you, there's questions at the end.
Thank you. Put on my notes here because I will not memorize everything. Kiara, thank you for having me. My name is Daniel. I operated this Zero Waste Glenorchy, which is a community composting scheme in Glenorchy, which has been fully supported by the council, which I am very grateful for, and not only me but the whole community. First of all, massive congratulations and support to the work that this waste management team has been doing for the council. I think one thing that is the local district, as they like to call taxpayers, should be very grateful is that they have an amazing team doing work in that specific area here in our district. So we are very grateful for that, not only with the WMMP, right, but also for over the past few years. Overall, I'm very supportive of the plan that they put forward. I think it's a document that can be used, and many councils would probably ask for that document because it's very comprehensive, very well thought. So amazing work there. And I do have a few points specifically to the organic and food scraps section. So as I explained, I operated the Glenorchy Community Composting Scheme. That was a pilot project that we set up with the support of the council about 3 years ago. What I do, I don't know if everyone is paying, you know about the project, but every week, once a week, I go out on an e-bike with a trailer and I collect food scraps from local residents and business. And I bring that to our composting hub, which is on the land of the Headwaters Eco Lodge, which they've also been very generous and supportive of the initiative from the early days, and they provide the land, which we are very grateful for. So we bring that food scraps to the facility, we process it. We have a recycled shipping container that has been transformed into pretty much a composting machine now. So it's a big food eater. It's got an auger inside, which means there is very little manual work required. It does the work by itself. So in about 3 weeks of putting the material on, we can take out beautiful compost outside from the other side. That compost stays within the community, and it's a free resource that the community can come and use in their gardens for native planting. And it just means that we have a full circular economy working. So that's a bit of a background where I come from. So again, I fully support QLDC plan to roll out food scrap collections across the district. My message today here is around how it's going to be done matters. I think overall, generally speaking, it can be done in 2 ways. It can be done in a centralized model. So a centralized model would probably mean a truck or a few trucks collecting that food scraps from people's house and business. Well, I'm not sure how that's going to work with residents and commercial, and then take it to a central hub that I don't know if the council will be able to find a piece of land that can accommodate that kind of facility within the Queenstown district, if it has to be in Wanaka, it has to be outside the district, but then having a centralized model where that's processed. So that's generally speaking a centralized model. I don't know how far with the planning council is with that matter. So that's one way. And then the other way is in the way that we do in Glenorchy, which is a decentralized model with small community groups. Like we have us in Glenorchy, we have Mr. Chipper here doing some of the work in Arrowtown. So having small community groups operating a smaller scale facility with their own community. So, and the reason I'm here speaking is because I would strongly disencourage the council to go to a centralized model. I believe that does not align with our climate goals, does not align with our circular economic values. It's going to be taking resources from the community, far away from the community. It's probably going to involve trucks. We don't need more trucks on the roads. We've proved in Glenorchy, even with the harsh winters, that it can be done on an e-bike, it can be done with a trailer, it can be done on a smaller scale. So I'm here to encourage council that how it's done matters and to support a model that empowers local community initiatives to organize themselves and with the support of council to have local community composting schemes. So a bit more detail there. So in Glenorchy, we use a facility that was, we use equipment that was manufactured by Green Mountain Technology, which was United States manufactured, shipped here. However, we have local companies that are able to pretty much manufacture one of those shipping containers here. We don't need to import those. We just need a recycling shipping container basically, and a local engineering company, which I know at least one that can produce something like that. That means that the reason why that model is efficient is because it can be done on a urban area. It's smell-free, there's no smell, there's no rodents. We are in Glenorchy, we are 10 meters behind Mrs. Woolley's General Store, which I believe everyone here probably knows. And if you ever had a coffee there, I don't think you ever smelled the smell of rotten food or anything like that, but just 10 meters behind there, we have a community composting scheme working, and we never had a problem with smell, rodents or anything like that. So that means you can have that model in a urban area, excuse my English. So again, my support here would be for this model to be centralized. You could be, a model in Jack's Point for Henleys and Jack's Point. You could have Arrowtown, you could have one here in town, maybe, I guess that's how it's done. It's gonna have to be up to do some work, planning that. Again, I collect compost by bike once a week. People wave, kids ask questions, stores taking photos. It brings composting to the heart of the community. So something that trucks cannot do. So I think overall, a bike with a QLDC branding or with a local community group that's supported by QLDC, collecting food scraps will be the positive public perception. It shows QLDC is visible, it's human, and doing things differently. Locals notice, visitors notice. So that not only adds to the local economy, local circular economy model, but also to the overall public image that people perceive, not only the council, but also food organic composting, which there is a bit of stigma there. Again, when I go out on my bike every Friday, you have locals coming to me all the time, and it just creates that human interaction, something that I've actually had to do on a youth for a couple of weeks when we were fixing the bike, and it was a completely different vibe. You know, you don't have that human interaction with people, you don't have that, it just misses that connection that you get when you have someone on an e-bike, just face to face with the community. And then obviously the other huge part of that is that whatever is produced by the community stays with the community. We've had people in Glenrock that didn't have a garden before, and just by collaborating with the project, producing, giving us the food scraps, realizing they could get compost back, they are now doing their own garden. So it's not only about the waste, but the waste that compost is actually a resource that people can use, grow their own veggies at home. It's, you know, I think everyone knows that so many reasons why we need to have a veggie garden at home, how good it is for us. It reduces packaging, it reduces buying food with pesticides and all that. So just by having that resource makes people more willing in the community, more willing to do things like this. We support our local native planting nursery as well. So again, most of the community here, the communities here, they have some sort of planting nursery, native planting around them. It's another thing that resource can be used instead of if it's going outside somewhere else. So again, this is how we create a true circular economy, not just with policy, but also changing the culture around waste. That's not just something that disappears from our site. It's actually that's something that stays with our community. These local systems create better jobs, active, visible, community-facing roles instead of just more trucks on the road. Nothing against trucks, we all need them, but I think the more we have bikes and not trucks on the road, the better for our overall traffic and well in general. So yeah, just please consider investing in decentralized community scale composting as part of the plan. Glenrock has proven that it's possible. Yeah, and I'm more than happy to help with anything that can be done there in that space and how to make it happen. That's me. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Daniel.
you.
We have a few minutes before we go to Marion, so time for questions. Anyone?
I'm not sure I've got questions, but I guess I just wanted to say thank you, because I think what you outlined there is this sounds really cheesy, but I'm going to say it. You're not just growing soil, you're growing relationships.
Yes.
Be the tagline. So, but I think it's really important. It's the decentralized piece is really what you're talking about there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you outlined that really well. Thanks.
I had a question about size and scale. How many people we're looking obviously doing this district-wide, and so we have to consider but a shipping container is fairly modular.
Yeah.
What would be the limitations for the amount of people per shipping container roughly, would you think?
Okay, give me a minute. So the shipping container that we use there, it's a 20 foot long, which is a small model. The company that built this one, they also make a 40 foot, which is or 45 foot, which is like more than double the size. Or they also build a custom, which is kind of the similar shape of a shipping container, but it's made of blocks. So it's like concrete blocks, and they still have the auger inside. So that can be, they use for green, massive farming and composting in the US. The current model that I have there, we have about 70 households and small business sign up that I collect food scraps every year. I would say we are probably running at 25% of the capacity that shipping container could run. So even with that small shipping container, we could probably, go do 4 times the amount of people that we do. So if you put a double the size of the shipping container, then, that just goes 8 times that. So, I think size there wouldn't be a problem because the turnaround of the shipping container is so quick. You put food in there and in 2 weeks it literally becomes compost. Then you have to have that on a curing bay, but it's very low maintenance. And that's the other thing about that model is that the cost to run it's very small compared to, you know, open pile where you have to keep turning all the time and to actually have a good compost system, because the ship container does the work.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's really helpful to know. We're going up to time, so happy there. Thank you so much for
Thank
your
you.
submission. Thanks for coming to speak to him.
Thank you.
Finally, do we have Marion from the Winters online? Shauna, so far yet?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the time is
2:05.
2:05 just now. I can give her a minute.
Hang on time.
If not, I'll move to a break. I'll come back for deliberations.
How much time are we gonna have for a break?
I'm gonna say 10 minutes. So we can all talk to Jean and then.
I'll pause the recording while we think about it.
Yeah, so we'll go to. So we move to the debrief, is that correct?
Yeah, opportunity for any questions you'd like to clarify before the
Yeah.
deliberations.
So yeah, does anyone have any questions that they wanna ask staff now, just before we get into discussions?
No, it's not.
We haven't got the last speaker.
No, I've not had an email from it.
Oh, yeah, check, Mary.
I think, I don't know whether I need to ask this now, whether it'll just come through discussions, but obviously we've got the 5 kind of pillars in.
Sorry, I do have an email from Protect Our Winters.
Oh,
Apologies.
okay.
She's just emailed, she's CC'd you in, John. That she's not received a Zoom link.
Oh, there's gonna be.
Oh, here she is.
Oh, great, oh, that all works out. Marion, can you see and hear us?
Hi, sorry, I just, I've been on hold for the last while to people trying to get the Zoom link, and then I just used one from an old meeting, and I guess it's the same one, so.
Okay.
Well, and it worked.
Glad that it all worked and that you're here.
Sorry about that.
To talk, you've got 10 minutes, and if you want questions, just leave space at the end for that to be in your time, but go for it.
Okay, awesome. Thanks so much. I'm really glad it worked out. So I'm speaking on behalf of Protect Our Winters, and Protect Our Winters connects the outdoor community to take climate action. So we're really interested in the emission side of the waste minimisation plan. Overall, we're really happy with the plan. I feel like we really want to emphasize how positive we feel about it, and even down to like the graphics and how well those like landfill stats were presented. It was a really easy read, which sometimes district council plans are not that easy to read. So first of all, just great communication and overall really happy with the plan. I've just got a few kind of specific points here that I wanted to speak to. The first is about the curbside collection of organic waste, which is 55% of stuff that's going in the red bins right now. So it's a huge opportunity to divert waste from landfill, and that would both avoid waste and reduce emissions from the methane that would come from that organic matter decomposing anaerobically in landfill. We really want to emphasize that this should begin now. Like I couldn't actually, I was rereading the plan again today, and I couldn't find any sort of estimated date in it. So I know it's in the plan, but that should really be moved right to the front and be the very first thing that's implemented. There's heaps of really good stuff in there, but we feel like this should be the priority. A lot of POWs members live and work in the region seasonally. So it's great if you own a house and you have a lawn and you are able to do your own composting at home. But for many people, they move in and out of the district and they don't have a permanent residence. So getting seasonal people to compost is really difficult, and having curbside collection would just make it really easy for both seasonal employees, and also visitors. And that was another really positive thing in the plan, was that the QLDC wants to address waste minimisation both from residents and visitors. Along with the green waste collection, I surround myself with people who really care about climate change and want to reduce waste. But a lot of people just don't realise that when you throw your banana peel and your potatoes and your old rice in the rubbish bin, that does cause climate pollution, even amongst the crowds who are already relatively educated and really care about this. So the green waste collection service really needs to be launched with a really big educational initiative, both for locals and visitors. Really awesome that you're working with the ski fields. Great to see that included in the plan. Also really appreciate seeing that there's a plan to have more community repair events. We want to see more of these in more locations and at more kind of times and seasons. A lot of the repair events that have happened so far have been on the middle of the day and the weekend when a lot of POW members work. So more opportunities for repair events in the evenings would be great, and in multiple places. In one of the pictures in the plan, there's this like future town, and it's got the reuse it center, and there's people shopping there, and then there's a repair cafe. Rather than have, I mean, repair events are really awesome, but could it be possible that there's a permanent repair location that's made or built or initiated, where people can just bring things to be fixed at any time on any day, not just at special events? And then, yeah, and a lot of those events are funded by the Waste Minimisation Fund, which is really awesome, and we would love to see that continue. One of the last points, oh yeah, it might be the last point, is some places, some district councils or places around the world will do curbside organic collection and then compost that waste and turn it into soil, which is then sold for a profit. And so there's like a revenue opportunity for the QLDC, and it wasn't really clear that that's been investigated or considered, and all of this costs money. So if there's an opportunity to make money from reducing waste, that should be investigated. And I think that's it. Happy to answer any questions that people might have.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the panel?
I don't have any questions, but thank you, Mariam.
Thanks.
I don't either, but thanks for your submission. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad we could fit you in at the end and figure out a way somehow. Thank you for submitting, and thank you for finding the time to talk to us. I really appreciate your advocacy and support, and all your points are duly noted. So thanks again.
Cool, thanks so much. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye. Awesome. So we move back to deliberations, and yeah, I'll just kick it off with any questions that we have of staff, just to help start some conversation or to get us thinking in the right ways.
I'll just start with a really wide question then, which is kind of going to incorporate all the procedural thinking as well. Given the submissions, have you kind of found the feedback helpful in terms of how it can be potentially be adapted, how the waste plan can be adapted?
Yeah, I think there's some areas there that we can highlight. Based on today's feedback in particular, I've heard people say that they haven't understood some of the intention behind some of the actions. For example, the implementation of site-specific waste minimisation plans on construction sites. That is intended through one of the actions. Where we talk about regulatory tools, we just didn't label out every regulatory tool. So there's either opportunity to enhance some of those kind of specifics to make it very clear to some of our strong stakeholders who read every detail, but equally responding to their submissions. So that is the intention. Notwithstanding, the plan has been designed to allow for actions that are currently funded through the LTP, and yet in full knowledge that if we are able to secure additional funding, then some of these actions could be implemented early in the plan rather than later in the plan, or other way round. So hearing from quite a few of them around implementation timeframes, I think there's the chance to either include some of the expectation in here or to guide people towards our LTP and our LTP process. One area that I have noted through the written submissions is quite a lot of interest and support for working with our visitor economy and the potential for targeting a whole objective and area at the visitor sector. It is embedded throughout a number of the objectives, but perhaps for clarity, pulling that out might be an alternative approach. We received internal feedback that we should be strengthening our commitment to Te Ao Māori. Unfortunately, that didn't come through in time to make any adjustments to the draft before it went out, but perhaps there's an opportunity there. I've got a couple more that I noted. If I can just refer, so one of the areas around we talk a lot in the plan about collaboration across our stakeholders, and we heard well described from Gina about the social enterprise perhaps being identified clearly as one of our stakeholders that we work with. What I have heard also is that we don't have a strong definition on what partnerships could look like described in the plan, and whether there would be any benefit in embedding that a bit deeper into the plan about permitting us to defining what a partnership, a collaborative relationship with social enterprise or other stakeholder might look like. And obviously it would be varied across those stakeholders. I talked about CND. I think the element that quite a few submitters talked to around the regulatory tools, they don't fit within the expertise of our P&I waste team. They sit more with perhaps planning and development teams. And so we haven't put actions in there that say, hey, P&D, you need to do A, B, and C. And so I'm wondering if there's something in the plan that could strengthen the opportunity to work across council more broadly in delivering some of these actions. I don't think that comes out very clearly, that we would work with other departments and not just with P&I. I think that's about it, to be honest. They're the key areas that I've since been thinking about the most.
I appreciate it. I was just gonna add to your point around the legal aspect, because a lot of these things are some really great points, and I was reflecting back on the actions, and some things like adopting a local waste bylaw could encompass, regulatory tools around packaging and other initiatives with C&D and WMPs on sites. So I guess, would you say that the waste bylaw would be the place for the planning department to be more supportive in terms of regulatory tools, or do you reckon it's not the right place for it?
No, it's the right place for it.
Yeah.
And some of those will be able to be implemented, but we haven't done enough of the work to understand which of those have a legal leg to stand on within a bylaw and which would need some other kind of tool or other set of guidelines that are more educative in their outcome rather than just a stick approach. But the intention is to look at all of those opportunities within a regulatory framework and where we can build them into, for example, a bylaw. And some work has been done. I can't remember exactly everybody's request through the submissions that require some kind of regulatory tool and whether or not they would all fit into a bylaw.
Is like I feel comforted that, you know, the 5 priorities, objective 5, policy and advocacy for community solutions, that, you know, these partnerships, this sort of the stick and carrot approach can fall under these. Are you confident that the framework's right, and it's just if we were to amend some things, it would just be either including or evolving some of the actions under those framework pieces, or do you think there needs more scope to make space?
Aside from targeting the visitor economy under its own separate objective, I'm very confident that the framework that we've established will capture everything. I think that given the feedback from LWT and Destination Queenstown and in relation to their goals and plans in the destination management plan, the building a closer relationship with them and then kind of making sure that we're well aligned in being able to deliver some of that stuff. It would get more visibility if we had a separate section on visitor waste. And there may be some benefit in that. It probably does come with the requirement of more resourcing to deliver on some of those, but that's not out of scope for the duration of the plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Sarah,
yeah, so I guess it's all in the same vein. A lot of the commentary that we've heard both in the written submissions and today, I think there's a couple of key things that I've picked up on. One is what you've said about visitor economy and the potential for whether that does need its own objective, as it were. The other thing was made by both parties that spoke to construction, and I think that maybe there's opportunity at a very high strategic level to look at objective 1 and change the language, which currently just states reducing to rethink reducing, which I mean, that look, the hierarchy is there and it states in policy that that's the hierarchy, but it just makes it more explicit. And I think given that objective 2, reducing organic waste, that we kind of know the how with that, it's much more comprehensive in terms of the journey of how to get there. It's much more understood in terms of the feedback loops, etc. Like, you know, so, but objective 1, what I'm hearing is that it's still not understood. And so it's the education piece, but I wonder if at a strategic level, objective 1 would say rethink construction waste and maybe just outline in the little write-up that, you know, it says immediately afterwards.
Yeah, it's action number 1.
Did I say 2? I meant 1.
I don't know, sorry, I didn't hear you say it, but I'm pretty sure it's action number 1 is the opportunity for us to strengthen the commitment to the redesign, rethink aspect, notwithstanding that would require resourcing within a different department to the P&I department.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so are you okay if I just speak to some of the things that I guess?
Before you do, I guess just checking in with Gavin if you've got any questions of staff now.
It doesn't matter whether I say something now or later on, but I mean, for me, the 3 main things I guess that stood out for me were construction, demolition waste, food and organic waste collection, and support for Wanaka Waste Busters. They keep coming up again and again in the submissions. That construction and demolition waste, like I said, during the submissions, it's quite hard to really have a direct effect on that, I guess, as a council, apart from encouraging people to think about it, I suppose, and giving them the tools to try and implement it. We don't get to have input into how people are designing their buildings directly, in terms of designing out waste. So it's just a matter of, I guess, using the avenues that we do have to try and affect it. And I think someone mentioned whether it could become part of the building consent process. I'm not sure if it could.
I don't believe so.
No.
But I do know that there are eco-design advisors in lots of councils that provide that very specific kind of advice.
Yeah.
Pre-consenting phase, which we currently do.
In terms of the consenting side, I think potentially it should come into the resource consenting side of things everywhere, because we think as part, and again, it's regulatory side of things, but you know, they ask for other plans, soil erosion plans, various other things that could be, you know, we could potentially ask for a waste management plan as part of that, as a resource consent. But I don't know if there's any you know, value in looking at that as an option in the future, but or including something in there that mentions that. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that at all?
From memory, the site-specific waste minimisation plan, so the kind of mechanism of recording what's coming into your site, what can be diverted, what could be designed out, etc., is largely explored through a bylaw with other councils, not through a business consent or a resource consent phase. And the opportunity for the investment in resource recovery, so the construction waste, the end of the pipe construction waste resource recovery could sit more with council. We don't have any funding in the LTP for infrastructure associated with that. There's no commitments to do that. We've largely avoided going in that direction, and we've encouraged in the plan that we are putting that out to the broader community to fill some of those gaps. Was there any other part to your question?
Yeah, no, I mean, and the other thing I was going to say was that with, you know, you can have all the best intentions in the world, and, you know, someone mentioned it, mentioned from, you know, management level, they might have the intention to reduce waste in terms of the construction cycle, but the more people you've got in the chain, the harder it is to control what happens at the very end of the chain. And, you know, getting the person who's cutting the timber on site to think about reducing the waste is pretty hard work sometimes. And then, you know, even as simple as having lots of different bins on site for different types of waste, sometimes that's hard to achieve as well when you've got limited amount of space and you've got to have a different bin for different things.
And at the moment, we don't have a pathway for a lot of those materials to be repurposed, reused, recycled, recovered in any way. So there is a lot of pieces of the puzzle that need to be filled.
Yeah. Now the next question was about the food and organic waste collection. I know that's been talked about and it's, you know, in the pipeline. Do we have any clear pictures on how far away that is, or when?
So the decision that council made was to work with QLDC to understand their timeline for building and delivering a processing facility for the material that could be collected that would be taken to that processing facility, to continue exploring that. And QLDC are continuing to explore that and are expecting to hear from the Ministry for the Environment regarding their capital funding for that imminently, any day now. And if that goes ahead, they have a timeframe of 12, 18 months, 24 months to go through the consenting and delivery of that processing solution. Once they have a firm timeline in place, then we would bring that to council to confirm if that was the preferred choice to enter into an agreement with QLDC to access that. At the same time, our intention is to look at other opportunities through the procurement for our new MRF facility as possible additions to a MRF service, and see whether anybody else is keen to put something in front of us for consideration, which would, yeah, again, there's nothing available at the moment, again, be subject to a timeline of consenting and construction and delivery of that service. So in a great world, we could be 18 to 24 months away from somebody actually having a collection available to them.
Yes, so I started with the question of, what we learned from the submissions, and thank you for answering that. So I think our job here today is to kind of take on board what gaps there are and what we may not have addressed. And I'm just trying to think kind of pragmatically about how we build in some of those issues that we've heard. And so I guess it's exploring how the plan could be adapted or changed. And some of that I think possibly is semantic. So that was kind of where I was leading with that original question, was objective one, could we re-language it to rethink? There's also other things like respecting Te Ao Māori, maybe we shift to supporting Te Ao Māori, just so that that alignment is kind of one step further. And then in terms of how we may address it, do you think, I guess I'm unsure of how we can move it forward for you to come back to us prior to September with exploring some of the things we've heard today. So, for example, the definition and strengthening the meaning of partnership, I think, is an opportunity. And given that this is a strategic kind of level policy with some operational outcomes, it might not be that we need to be absolutely specific, but I think it's important that we maybe recognise different types of partnerships and what we mean by that. So whether they're strategic partnerships, whether they're long-term service agreements, whatever they might look like, do you think we can, or that staff can incorporate some of that thinking in the language before September?
My get out clause on that would be around putting in a commitment that that's what officers would do. So it'd be like an additional action. And right, if I actually only have next week to do this if I want to get the draft plan to you in September.
Okay.
So the easiest solution would be to put an action in there that says we would commit to defining what partnerships are, what they look like, and work with our stakeholders to understand that better.
So that really answers the question I guess I'm trying to seek the answer to, which is how do we adapt this in time for it to be pragmatic and usable? So maybe all of the things that I'm thinking about that could just look like action points that we either explore or define or whatever.
I think there'll be a balance. There'll be some that I could make the change this afternoon and be like, oh yeah, that's really clear. It's a change to an existing action that highlights that rethinking and redesigning is a higher priority. But some of them about what would the definitions and the commitments look like to developing strategic partnerships would take a bit more time, and therefore it could be included as its own action to take away and work on in the next 2 or 3 months, whatever that time frame might be. It depends on which particular ones we want.
Shall I just go through the ones that I'm thinking of, and you can just.
If your list is
it's not long.
100 different ones.
So there's 2 of them. One is so 3 things are just semantics, which is objective 1, change to rethink and reduce. On the page where it's got, I'm not sure if I'm looking at the right version, but well, I'm not sure it's still 24, but on the draft one, it's page 24, where it's respecting Te Maori changes to support Te Maori, potentially. And then
Sorry,
objective,
can I just
Sorry.
find it on my plan? So page 24,
So it's with both the changing the wording of the objective and the supporting Te Maori.
what objective?
just the guiding principles, it says, by,
It's not the objective one is reducing construction waste, so it's when,
it's on page 24, putting it all together. It's just got a circle with respecting Te Maori, which is a guiding principle.
cool.
So potentially changing.
Yes,
that to
there we go,
support
the
thing.
guiding principle, yes.
And then the
100%.
action plan on page 25, objective 1, change reducing to rethink and
Yeah.
reduce. And objective 5, potentially explore whether you think you could do this. It would say policy, regulatory and advocacy. That sounds a bit weird. But having the word regulatory in there so that it's a bit more explicit that we can explore regulatory options, but without having to say how that looks.
It's good with me, I think that was on a previous version.
Right.
We did, we took advice from the strategic team and they said, well, that's covered by policy and advocacy,
Yeah.
you don't need to. But I don't think it matters that we.
No,
do that.
and it is semantics in a way, but I think it's just that several speakers spoke to that today.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like saying strategically, this is really important to us.
Yeah.
And it's an opportunity. And I think the partnership piece that I've already mentioned, I think that would be up to staff. Obviously, I don't think I can guide that in any way, but I think it's a really good opportunity to just explore what partnerships means and how you do that. It's up to you guys, obviously.
And perhaps that would be under objective 5.
Yeah.
Policy, regulatory and advocacy for community solutions.
Yeah.
We have a new action in there that is focused around defining, developing. That is because we talk about it throughout the plan, but we don't have much.
And that's the piece with advocacy as well. When I think about the VE visitor economy, it's kind of like a lot of that could come under advocacy. So it could sit in objective 5, but it's just whether, I don't know if it needs its own thing or not. To be, you wanted it to potentially be more explicit.
It was just an area that came up frequently.
Yeah.
I know it is of great interest and importance to us, and that there's enough within our actions across the objectives that are targeted at better understanding and better initiating stuff that helps with the visitor sector waste profile. It's whether or not the plan needed to highlight that more strongly, so that the visitor sector saw themselves there.
Okay.
I think, well, let's throw 2 cents in there. I feel like given that there is appetite to collaborate and putting more of a label on it helps daylight it a bit more and helps other people recognise that it's part of a strategy in terms of how we're trying to steer certain things. Because I hear what you're saying, because you can easily look at all of this and interpret in whatever facet to be quite encompassing, which is a really useful thing when you have to be somewhat versatile over the next few years. But part of having more bold and direct statements helps clarify for people this is an objective, in 5 years' time that council was trying to achieve, and also helps, I guess, anybody reading it know that there is a real appetite to address it more specifically. I was going to lead to my other question, which is just around, we've heard from every other submission around Wastebusters and their requirement for land. Is there any risk of being more straightforward and putting it more directly into the plan to clarify that, or how do you see that best being incorporated into a document like this? It's tricky, sorry.
It is really tricky because we do have guidance that where we don't have funding and commitments in the LTP to avoid putting any explicit commitments, actions that would suggest otherwise
Right.
in a strategic plan. So, but notwithstanding, there's probably something in between that allows us
I
to.
wonder if there's an opportunity around you mentioned earlier about, you know, you've got your department and then there's obviously other departments which like planning, P&R.
Property, yeah.
So I wonder if there's an opportunity, and I can't remember, sorry, all the actions and whether it's already covered, but you know, around our procurement policy to have an action that could look at something that speaks to zero waste in our procurement policy that would enable the best supplier. Well, I don't know what that looks like because I'm trying to be impartial, but in terms of, do you see where I'm coming from? Looking at it from a procurement view and whether that's in here.
So the intention of the guiding principles was that we would use those, which include circular economy, zero waste, te aomori, or as a lens through which we make our decisions. So I could use them when we're making a business case or planning for LTP, that I would use those to guide. This is what we've said, this is how we want to invest in achieving these, this is how we want to do it. And so that's there. Our procurement policy, the whole corporate procurement policy does have that lens as well.
Yes, it does.
Social enterprise, circular economy, zero waste, that's all in there already.
So then is it covered essentially? I guess what I'm asking is there a gap there where there's an opportunity to put in an action around what that could look like?
If it's anywhere, and we look at objective number 3, enhancing waste management and minimisation infrastructure, where that the strategic expansion of Wastebusters and the services it delivers falls into objective 3. It could also fall very specifically into reducing construction waste, reducing organic waste, those other objectives. But the big chunky infrastructure elements are in objective 3. So if you just quickly look at those and see if a reframing of any of those talks to that broad support of Wastebusters. So we've got number 15, the MRF, number 16, regional, 17, upgrades to transfer station, 18, encourage waste diversion. Council will work with the sector to facilitate and support options at non-council facilities for material diversion through reuse, recycling and recovery. So that to me speaks to largely what Wastebusters are being supported to do. It's not a particularly punchy action when you just say encourage waste diversion, but it also could be. It's a spectrum of how much is encouraged, how much is fund, how much is support, allow access to.
I think we recognise that because I think when people from the public read it, they're looking at outcomes, and when policy is written like this, it's looking at structures to provide the outcomes. And so, while like it doesn't seem as plain language as going, you know, it's exactly this, but it provides a platform to build those things on top of. So, I hear you in terms of the sexiness of going, that's exactly what we're doing. But yeah, like I appreciate we're all showing an appetite.
And it's through the right lens.
And just making sure that, like we're translating that as best as possible into a structure.
Yeah, the outcome for 18, that the community can divert a range of materials from disposal using options available at non-council waste facilities. You couldn't sum that up any more clearly than what people are asking for continued access in Wanaka and for increasing in Queenstown as well, which we don't have those opportunities yet.
Sure.
Okay.
Do you have anything more that you would like to?
No, other than just to say, I think you've done an amazing job on it, and I know it's a massive amount of work, and we spoke very recently about a council in the North Island that's just recently taken away their organic waste because the ratepayer doesn't want to spend much money on rates, so that was the thing that went. So I think, yeah, I'm thrilled that we've got this and it's heading in the right direction, and I guess also just want to say to everyone that's spoken today that there's so much amazing championing in this community, in this district, and we're so lucky as a council that that's happening, you know, and that we've got those partnerships. So yeah, it's awesome, and thank you for taking on board some of those discussion points as well.
No, I mean, I guess I'll just add on the back of that, for sure. It's always humbling reading the submissions and knowing the sort of understanding and appetite for people to do this stuff, and I do think collaboration is a huge aspect which is encompassed in this. And it's nice to be reinforced for all of the work that you guys are doing, because it is quite impressive to find a way through where a lot of people can see themselves in it and attach to it, and it be strong and versatile. Which sounds like I'm selling a shed. Anyway, I'll if Gavin, you didn't have any more, yeah, I'll let you speak.
Just a couple of things. So in the table in the report, you've got, you know, the response to feedback, and you've got a column of proposed responses. Are any of those leading to any specific changes to the draft and wording in the draft? So, because at the end of this, we need to decide whether we're kind of recommend it as it is or with changes, any changes. So, are there any specific changes that are coming about from these proposed responses?
From what we've just talked about now.
Well, and from what you've got in the report, the proposed response part of the table that's in the report on page 14.
Oh, sorry. Changes to the plan.
My understanding there's the stuff around objective 5, strengthening the visitor targets aspect, defining what partnerships could look like, adapting the Te Ao Māori support.
Yes, so do we know what the specific changes will be, or are you going to update the draft plan and send it out for?
I think that's up to our resolution, isn't it? Like, in terms of.
Yeah, well, I mean, our resolution can be subject to final improvement from the panel, but I guess you're just trying to figure out some structure around what the clear direction is in order to come back with, to be transparent around the process.
Yeah.
So has anyone summarized all the points that we've just discussed in the last 30 minutes? That's sort of the question you're asking.
Yeah, well, what we've been discussing, but also, yeah, anything else that's coming out of what you've looked at before today. Just so that we know what specifically is going to change, I guess, in that draft plan. But will that then, if you go and update the draft plan, will that come back to us for a final review?
If we want it to, yeah.
We can make a resolution, amendment to the resolution in order for it to be subject to final improvement by the panel. So that'd be.
We
don't have to. But yeah, basically looking at the agenda, there's option 1, 2, and 3, which is basically go with 1, go with it as is, 2, go with it with changes, and 3, don't go with it, essentially. So I'm assuming there's option 2 is.
I guess for me, we've talked generally about these topics and things, but I don't really have a clear understanding of exactly what might change in the draft plan that we're then going to put forward, well, depending on our resolution, putting forward to the council to adopt.
I guess to put the question back on to you, is there anything that would you would want to see change before approving the document as it sits?
Well, not specifically that I want to see change, but if we're talking about changing things, it's really want a better understanding of what is changing.
So
what has changed.
my understanding was that I was going to include an additional action under objective number 5 to look at better defining partnerships, because we talk a lot about partnerships and collaboration, and allocate an action to do more work in that space so that it is clear for everybody. I was going to change, can't remember what page it is, but the wording of the guiding principle, instead of respecting Te Ao Māori, to support Te Ao Māori or other, subject to a chat with the strategy team about how we can strengthen that wording. That under the construction waste objective, objective number 1, I was going to include some wording that highlights the commitment to look at the design phase, so through rethinking, redesigning, and whilst I believe it's there, embedded in there, make that stronger, so that it doesn't look as though that objective is just about dealing with the material once the house has been built and stuff's in the skip. If we are able to, if I'm able to make those changes, I think that was referring to your comment about the table in my report, the 38 point, sorry, point 38, the table. Most of those responses are around how I would refine the implementation plan, not the actual document itself. Apart from perhaps the last one about C&D waste, which talks about clarifying that action includes investigation of consent-related complaints. So this was about the site-specific waste minimization, making that a bit more clear in there. The rest of those are all, that's just what we would, how we would respond in an implementation of the plan. If worked with the hearing panel, I could make those changes over the next few days, email the revision, highlight those in the plan, and if it is acceptable to do that and have sign off from the hearing panel without having to bring it back in a formal setting, then I would still have time to develop the agenda paper for September. But I equally can move I could spend more time redrafting, but it would mean that we'd have to move it to another council meeting. We'd have to change that tentative slot, because the report is due with my GM next week. If I'm going to make some changes. So
no, that sounds okay. So you've got those items that you're looking to just tweak.
Those are the ones that have been clear so far, but I'm open to others if there are a few others that you think are worth me exploring, and we could thrash those out.
So I guess the question's back on you though. Were there any others, given that you've received all the feedback?
Right.
And then heard it today, whether you had any others that you were proposing?
So the ones that I talked to earlier were about whether or not to have a separate section on the key opportunity of focusing in on the visitor economy. And I don't have a strong opinion either way.
I mean, are you looking for direction from us on that?
Sorry,
I kind of threw that back to you because I was like, I don't know either. I think it is implicit, but I don't think it's explicit.
The challenge that would come with doing that is we would have to do some reworking across all of the objectives to kind of pull some of them out and put them into, because they're embedded in others, and put them into a new one, and then change our targets and the aspirational goals by objective. So it would be a little bit more work to do that.
Could you do it in a way of doing it as a guiding principle rather than embedding it in everything? To look at the visitor economy as part of the lens it looks through.
I looked at it slightly as well in terms of, is it a partnership thing with DQ and Lake Wanaka Tourism in terms of an initiative that they can help run? And so if it's a partnership, does it fall under, you know, defining and developing partnerships? Because it could be about signage and information education, it could be about reputation, all of these things are quite visual and upfront, which they can sort of take steer on. I mean, to make it easier on the
I'm also really conscious that the DMP has a lot of specifics in there for waste. And so replicating those can get confusing.
Yeah.
And as long as it's clear who has responsibility and what roles people are playing, then if it,
Yeah, because I see it quite like a reputational thing and like a narrative and a voice that is shared, which I think, you know, they would be good partners to help lead, given their prerogative and their funding.
Yeah.
So that could be all the way forward.
I mean, I think the missed opportunity is that this is for 6 years, right? So is that right? 6 years, isn't it? So it's like a lot can change in 6 years. So it's good to have as much as you can get in there that makes that explicit or gives it direction. So I think it's worthwhile to have something on the visitor economy which strengthens it, and maybe I think that's a great idea.
so put it into objective 5, the policy advocacy
Yeah.
and discussion around partnerships and collaboration, rather than separating it out as its own individual.
Well, if you separate it out, it's you're rewriting the whole thing, which is fine if you want to bring it back later. But I mean, that's the reality of it, isn't it? So I think if we can ensure that it's kind of says what it needs to say and kind of protects us for the next 6 years under pillar 5.
Yeah, I mean, like, happy to make a point of it, that you're right. I mean, the priorities on the investment infrastructure in the next 6 years are going to be massive on top of this. And I do think that the partnership approach is the most likely way of success. So yeah, it sounds like the simplest way forward, more smoothest way, if you're happy with finding a way through that.
I think the reason why perhaps it didn't have its own area was because there are a lot of unknowns in that space. We haven't done any deep dive into what does the visitor economy produce in terms of waste, different to everybody else who moves in our district. So it's an area that we
and it's just the same stuff, isn't it? It's just a spectrum of behaviour.
It's a question I have as well. I mean, people that live here go to restaurants, don't often stay in hotels, I guess, but in the Airbnb or residential visitor accommodation, they're basically producing household waste, like every other household is, in a similar fashion, and it's being collected and recycled in a similar way, isn't it? So
I think
a lot of those things are very similar to the people that aren't visitors that are living here, I guess.
Similar, but there is, I think, evidence in other high visitor places. I think Whistler did quite a lot of work that you do consume more and you do it with a little more wanton throwaway kind of careless behaviour when you're on holiday. So there might be some understanding that we
what was in the recycling bin every weekend.
So are we happy with where it sits and happy to move to the resolution?
I am.
Yeah.
Have you guys got everything you need?
Any other points you want to make? Whilst the oxygen's there.
I think the extras that would be lovely to include that signal strong commitment, whether it's resourcing internally or capital funding, or a very specific tool or approach. I think those will come out as we develop our implementation program, and then we move into drafting the next LTP, and then there'll be some harder decisions around, okay, strategically you've said you need to achieve this in this sector because it's going to give you another 10 years on your landfill life, or show me the dollars that I'll save or the time I'll save and how much that's going to cost. That will come through the LTP development. So all the little bits that are still perhaps hanging there as opportunities will get picked up through that process. And that we've got a plan that gives us the flexibility to move with where our community stakeholders have momentum, and still gives us a really clear path of what we need to focus. It's getting that balance right. So
No,
I think we're relatively close.
yeah, I'm sure you'd be glad to see it through. Okay, so I will be making an amendment to the resolution on point 4, where it says recommend to council a final form of the waste management and minimisation plan 2025 to be adopted. We're gonna put in there, subject to informal final approval from the panel, and giving you the flexibility to be able to report back to us without being a formal meeting, just on those things that we've shown clearly on a recorded meeting just then. Following the consideration of public feedback from the submissions. Is there anything that run through the list if you're happy with all? So I'm happy to move that the hearing panel, 1, note the contents of this report. 2, receive all submissions to the draft waste management and minimisation plan 2025 and hear the submitters who wish to be heard. 3, receive the late submissions, and 4, recommend to council a final form of the waste management and minimisation plan 2025 to be adopted, subject to informal final approval from the panel, following the consideration of public feedback from the submissions. Do I have a seconder?
Can I just, sorry, did you want to have that last phrase in the middle of that statement or at the end of it?
Ooh.
I think you'd actually initially suggested to put it at the end, but is it?
Oh, no, yeah, no,
Did
I
it
can put it at
change
the
the
end.
meaning if you put, I think you want the
Yes.
following consideration before you put subject to informal final approval for the panel, because that
Okay.
might be.
So I'll do the amendment at the
That makes
end.
sense.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Fine, no, happy to
I
follow
think
your
it's clear
advice.
that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want me to run through the thing then?
I think
Just read that last one again.
So point 4, recommend to council a final form of the waste management and minimisation plan 2025 to be adopted, following the consideration of public feedback from the submissions, subject to informal final approval from the panel. It is clear that way, so, yeah.
I've got a quick question though before we do, oh, have you seen that?
No, I didn't, because we
We
changed
just
it,
made
so we're
it.
still open.
Right. Yeah,
Do you have any suggestions?
no, I don't think so. Sounds pretty good. If you're happy with that. You don't want to put it up on the screen.
Do you want me to put it on the screen? I could do it. You want
Is it easy?
Have it.
Let's get that clarity before we
Otherwise,
vote on
I
it.
might pick it apart.
I just got to join.
Yeah.
So talk amongst yourselves.
Okay,
Join the
we chat.
The, just, I've got a quick question then, because we haven't actually got to moved it yet. Formally. Where it said receive, the late submissions. Which ones were the late submissions? Was that,
Oh, gosh.
because I don't think we had a late submission.
Plastic free Wanaka, and there was another one that was, just, there wasn't any speaking, like speaker.
Nice.
They
But I think-
weren't technically, they weren't that, like, they were all
Right.
included in the submission pack, they just got entered into the system because we
Right,
had a hitch when the lease.
Because I don't think they were specifically identified in the reporting being
Oh,
late
right.
submissions, whereas in the
Ah.
past, we've had like ones that have actually been a separate package of late submissions that we've had
Right.
to.
But we don't want
Agreed.
to name and shame them, do we go?
Yeah.
Well, they weren't,
And they're
great
only-
because
just-
our system was down
Yeah.
for the last 48 hours
that's
of
right, yeah.
compilation, so they couldn't put them in, so sort of not
Yeah.
really a late submission.
Received into the-
But they were captured within the full pack and analysis,
Yeah.
which is why, I'm sorry, I can't remember which ones we ended up picking up out of the system a day after SCP had closed.
Those were just the last two in the report.
Okay,
I can find out, if we need to, I can. spend
no, it's
a
all right,
minute.
because I just, well, I was saying, you know, previously when we've had late submissions, they have been clearly identified as a package of late submissions, and we've had to agree to accept them before we could even consider
Right.
them. And then there wasn't a separate, it wasn't very clear which
No.
ones were late, if any, so, yeah, it's fine.
Would be good to add an and in there, sorry.
Have you got it on the screen?
Oh, I must have been sharing it with someone else.
Okay.
Who am I? Which meeting have I just joined?
I think I saw you pop up in Teams, actually.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I just joined the wrong meeting.
Oh, you could,
Sorry about that.
or was it Teams instead of Zoom?
Yeah, I was just, it's in Zoom. I've got to go. Yeah. Bringing the A game. but-
I'll run through it once more time just to make it clean and clear, land this plane. So I'm happy to move that resolution required, move that one, we note the contents of this report. Two, receive all submissions to the draft waste management and minimization plan 2025 and hear the submitters who wish to be heard. Three, receive the late submissions. And four, recommend to council a final form of the waste management and minimization plan 2025 to be adopted following consideration of public feedback from the submissions and subject to informal final approval from the panel. Do I have a second?
So the only other thing I was going to say, that's why I wanted to see the writing, because I was trying to capture it all, but just with previous recent experience from the hearing we had the other day, we added in there with changes following consideration from public feedback, just to make clear that we have incorporated.
With changes at the end of the panel.
So just in between, after adopted, changes following
Okay.
consideration of public feedback.
Does that work?
Yeah, that's good.
Did you want to second that?
Oh, I'll second that.
Second that? Great. All those in favour?
Yeah.
Aye. All those against? No, carried. Thank you very much. I've adjourned the meeting at 3:17 PM. Thank you.